Murdered border agents, the lives of innocent Americans ruined, families destroyed, and thousands of innocent Mexican citizens dead. This is the legacy of Fast and Furious, arguably the centerpiece of Obamagate. Recently, the Mexican consulate has taken an avid interest in Fast and Furious, seeking justice for the Mexican people who lost their lives due to the careless, cavalier attempt by the American DOJ to disparage Second Amendment rights, and due to the attempt at cover for the illegal Black Ops movement of weapons across the Mexican border. With us today is Ian Garland, a returning favorite guest. We very warmly welcome him and thank him for joining us. And we invited Ian to talk to us because he recently was asked to meet with the Mexican consulate. And in this long process of Fast and Furious, justice has been elusive on the United States side, but it almost is appearing as if, ironically enough, justice may come from the Mexico side before it catches up on the U.S. side. And of course, there have been many Mexican citizens who have been grievously injured by Fast and Furious. I believe the number is in the thousands of people who have been killed with weapons that cross the border in the Fast and Furious operation. So it is natural that Mexico would want justice for her people. And in that context, evidently, Ian, the Mexican consulate has contacted you, and you, if I'm not mistaken, you actually met with them, and they definitely have an interest in pursuing justice.
Yes, thank you for having me on tonight. I was called prior to meeting with them, of course, by a government official from Mexico, and they asked me, would you come and talk to us and bring what you have in documentation? Apparently, if I've got the story right, the former president is claiming he knew nothing about Fast and Furious, and it was all over, and everybody should have known about it. So I don't know what sort of squabbling they're having down there, but the Deputy Consul General of a consul here in the United States called me and said, would I come and meet them? And that was from Washington, D.C. Well, yes, I said, no problem. So I went and met them, and I was actually introduced to the consular himself. We had a great long conversation about Fast and Furious, what happened in Arizona and how it was connected to El Paso, to my case. And they did not even have a copy of the congressional report that was done by Grassley and ISA back, I guess, 2012, 2013. The documentation I had, they were very interested in our group, the victims of Fast and Furious, and there's more than me. I didn't know that when I was contacted by them. There's about 5 people that are trying to get justice and answers. So I went and met with the official, gave him my documentation. What he told me is that documentation is going to go down to the Attorney General of Mexico in Mexico City. They're going to mark what they want to ask, and then they're going to come and meet with us, or meet with me specifically at the moment, and then ask questions and go on from there, and then approach the U.S. government and basically say, what the hell's going on here? Your citizens are coming to us for all this information and documentation, and we've been asking it from you for years. Your citizens have it? Explain that.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty pickle they're painting him into, the previous president. That's quite enlightening, Ian. And just speculation on my part, but it does kind of look like there's some coordination there going on behind the scenes to try to get the truth out. Because if like say, for instance, if President Trump wants to get something done, it helps him sometimes to have international pressure. So if he can, get the president of Mexico to ask the questions, then he can be put in the situation where, hey, I'm just responding to international questions. And and vice versa. It works both ways for the Mexican president, the current Mexican president. So I think they might be helping themselves out that way.
Well, unfortunately, it's kind of disgusting that a bunch of American citizens have to go to a foreign country justice, their own country.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, it totally shows how much corruption there is, that this is necessary. Yeah.
I mean, once the media mainstream get hold of it and said, Mr. President, can you explain why these U.S. citizens have gone to Mexico to get justice? I don't know what he's going to say, and I don't mean to put the president down. I know he's probably got a million things a day to put on his plate to take care of, but he needs to make an independent panel, someone to start investigating, someone to start listening to what we've been saying. And mine was connected to Fast and Furious in Arizona. I kept telling them that, and they're like, "Oh no, it's not. No, it's not." Well, the documentation I have, and this is from the U.S. government, Jamie Avila. He's the one that bought the 2 rifles that were found at the murder scene of Brian Terry. He was buying firearms for the police chief, the police officer, the mayor, and the trustee. These are government officials from the city of Columbus, New Mexico, who were buying from me. So there's your connection. And even John Dodson says in his book, he knew all of Jamie Villa's associates. So obviously they knew about these guys from day one. And they let me sell to the government officials for over a year until their little operation went belly up when, unfortunately, Brian Terry was killed.
Right. Well, what I'm thinking of, Ian, is that the normal procedure in the United States is not like a lot of countries where the federal law enforcement immediately has jurisdiction, because all of this happened with corruption in a lot of times state officials were involved, local police chiefs and whatnot, that were responsible to their own internal state jurisdiction. Then the last thing President Trump needs is for him to go swooping in and claiming, no, this is my jurisdiction. So he's got to set the table correctly in order to be able to respond without being accused of being a dictator, because he knows the games they're trying to play against him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know what they're trying to do to the guy. I mean, we had this Russian collusion, millions of dollars spent for nothing. We had the impeachment, millions of dollars spent for nothing. I mean, they just cannot give up. And it's obvious why they don't want him reelected. If you look at the Supreme Court and Mr. Trump gets elected for another 4 years, there's 2 people on the Supreme Court right now who are not going to last another 4 years. That's Ginsburg and I can't think of the other name, but he gets to appoint 2 more Supreme Court justices. And, you know, the liberals and Democrats are having a fit over that, of course. What happened with Kavanaugh? They absolutely had a meltdown over that, bringing stuff up that happened 25 years ago.
I'm wondering the significance of the administration turnover in Mexico as well. I won't pronounce this name correctly. Is the Enrique Peña Nieto? Was the president in Mexico during the time? Oh, I'd say it looks like it coincided with the Obama administration a little bit. Let me get the date here. But that's what I was going to ask is, did the turnover in administrations in Mexico affect the attitudes toward Fast and Furious?
It could be true. I'm not too sure of what was going down there. The only thing I realized was when they called me that they were having some squabble about the former president not knowing, claiming he did know. So I haven't researched that a great deal at the moment, but I know there's some sort of internal snafu going on with the former president, current president. But when they contacted me, I spoke with a gentleman from the consulate for several hours. I think they're all educated here in the United States because they knew our ways. They knew all the innuendos, the jokes. And this guy I spoke to, he knew a lot about guns. I was actually impressed. I mean, not too many people know about firearms, what he was talking about. I was really impressed. I was in the Army for several years as an armorer. And what he was telling me wasn't common knowledge. I'm like, oh, you're very educated on this. I was surprised.
Well, the thing about Mexico, too, I think this might have an effect on the attitude, or at least the operation of guns walking, is that I don't believe Mexico has a firearms industry. Is that true?
I believe you're correct on that. I think it's very hard for our citizens to own anything above a 22. You can't own military calibers. I mean, I go to Mexico a lot, and they're very strict and very tight on firearms. Even when I used to talk to some of my buddies who are in federal police over there, and outdated weapons. A lot of them now are changing over slowly. But some of the firearms those guys were carrying were just like, well, I guess it was better than nothing, I suppose. But they were in terrible condition.
Right, but the point is, if they don't have an organic manufacturing base there, they would have to be getting their firearms from other countries. And I know that there's even some World War I stuff kicking around. You know, that's how bad it is in many of these countries. We're used to it in the U.S. because we've got a pretty good firearms industry historically. It's under a little bit of stress, but it's still probably the premier source in the world. Italy's got some pretty good things coming from there, but again, the temptation to get a deal going over the border must have been irresistible. And I don't know if you're able, or if you're, you know, if you're probably able, but if you can comment on the possible interaction of gang-related armaments and the Obama administration interacting somehow in some form or fashion with the Nieto administration, because their terms seem to coincide. Roughly 2012, Nieto came into power. Before that, Felipe Calderon. So that's when this whole thing started to fester. And now, you see, it seems almost the reason I was going there, and if we can elaborate that a little bit, is does it mirror the emergence of Donald Trump and the surprise change in Attorney General that came with it? And are they going back to the old administration, like we're going back into things like Obamagate and looking at bringing that back up again? I'm just curious as to their attitude. If it sounds like it was pretty positive, but what was your impression of just the overall political attitudes in Mexico now?
There's something else going on right now. I don't know what's changed. There's a lot of what's going on. And it seems to be, I guess it could be the new president that's causing all these new changes. Because, never before have I been called by a foreign government to come and talk to them over something. I mean, obviously there's something going on. I mean, we all know they said there was 2,000 guns. There's more than 2,000 guns that went missing in Arizona. I mean, people would go to gun shows, and I know this for a fact, that they would just buy them from private dealers. The guns they're reporting were all done on 4473 by straw purchasers. All the private sales that went over there runs into the thousands and thousands. And you were right at the start of the show when you said a lot of their citizens are still being killed. Every day that these firearms are turning up. You're talking about big firearms. Recently, the Mexican, he was the Mexico City chief of police. He was ambushed, and they shot the bejesus out of his vehicle. It was an armored vehicle. I don't know if anyone realizes that here, but it was like last month or the month before. Two of his aides were killed, and you should see the vehicle. It took a pounding to stop most of the firearms, most of the rounds, and apparently there is even a 50 cal involved. So a lot of weapons went over there, a lot of high-powered weapons. I mean, a 50 cal, you can take down a chopper, shoot through an engine block, shoot the engine out of a plane. I mean, that's some high-powered armaments there.
Well, didn't Wes say that when his family's, effectively the entire gun store was stolen from his family, but they had some pretty heavy-duty weapons stolen. If I remember correctly, I think he told me there were something like $4 million worth of automatics and semi-automatics that were taken out of that gun store. So yeah, there's some heavy arms out there that came over the border in Fast and Furious.
Exactly. When I worked at Fort Bliss in El Paso, at the Army base there, I mean, I saw things disappear. I actually mentioned it to some of the authorities. It went nowhere. I mean, you're talking about night vision scopes, lasers, all kinds of weapons. Even just a simple 30-round magazine is worth a great deal of money over there in Mexico.
we were talking about the Mexican president, and a little bit about President Trump. And Ian, we knew that week that that this meeting was planned for, and the three of us were talking about it a little bit. And Ken was, I think, the one who noticed that President Trump was meeting with the Mexican president, President Obrador, right around the time. I don't think it was the same day, but it may have been like a day or two before you had your meeting with the consulate. And I was kind of curious. We all were kind of curious about whether there was some relationship in the timing of that, whether that was any significance that, because we know that President Trump is aware of what happened in Fast and Furious, and I think that he's even given some assurances to some of the victims. I think Wes mentioned something about that, that he knows what happened and he is going to take action. So did you have any sense that the timing of your meeting might have anything to do with being close to the timing of President Trump meeting with President Obrador?
Yes, I know Wes did speak briefly to President Trump. President Trump did say he's aware of it. I've been told by my sources he's aware of it also, but he's just saying that. I mean, what else is he going to say? No, I don't have time. I'm busy right now. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. But yeah, the timing right now, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, is it coincidental? Is it perfect timing? I mean, we may find out in the end if something comes up. Like I said, what I'm hoping for, maybe at the press conference, someone's going to get up there and say, hey, can you explain why these people have gone to Mexico about the Fast and Furious gun running? Can you explain that? Maybe that'll wake somebody up. That's be our last best hope, to get some justice here for Brian Terry and Neil Anderson. I mean, we all lost a great deal, but those two families lost loved ones, and these days, especially for Neil Anderson, I mean, they're trying to say he was fentanyl, drug overdose. I mean, that's so common these days in the United States to say drug overdose, drug overdose. And there are some people who don't do drugs. I was questioned at one job once and one interview, and I said, well, I've never done drugs. And they said, well, not even marijuana? I said, no. Like, come on. I haven't. I've never done drugs. Some people don't. And that's Neil Anderson was labeled fentanyl overdose. So that's killing her mother. I mean, his mother. It's not right, And then Brian Terry, and there's some suspicious circumstances there because Neil Anderson was one of the people that carried Brian Terry's body out of the canyon that night, and he went to the family and said, what they're telling you didn't exactly happen that way. And then suddenly Neil Anderson turns up dead. So, you're talking about timing there. There's a lot of coincidences happening there,
Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that what we get is the people that don't want the truth to come out want the disinformation to get out into the press, but the people that actually have the evidence, they're the ones that don't really go to the press, and they are trying to rebuild the legal system so they get the crooked judges and everybody out of the legal system, and then once they can, they present their evidence. So I'm curious, Ian, the evidence there that you presented in Mexico, was that in any kind of a formal deposition, or what form did it take? Did they take your documents and that was it a formal submission? How would you characterize that?
Right, all the documentation I had, I mean, you would have to sit there for a day, go over it, and I'd have to go over it with you. They took it all. What I gave them, I made a cover page for every document that was something on it. Look on page 9, paragraph 7. This indicates that Jamie Villa bought the 2 rifles, also was buying for the city of Columbus. There's your connection to Fast and Furious. Look on this page. This is where the government admits just happened to use the wrong sentence and guideline book, and I got all that wrong. And I mean, it's just these are all their government documents themselves. I gave the consulate who sent them to Mexico City.
Well, your life was turned upside down, basically, right? So was this was what you presented information that you reconstructed from other sources or your own memory, or basically how were you able to pull all this together?
Oh, these are the actual government documents.
Oh, the congressional record type. Yeah, you got them all from other sources?
Yes. They wouldn't even give me a copy of the pre-sentencing report. But I got someone to get me a copy, and I thank her very much for doing that for me.
But it's all but you have personal. This is all information that affected you personally. So you not only had it government corroborated, but you had personal knowledge of it.
Yes, correct. You put two and two together. I mean, I can say this happened and that happened, and without any proof. I mean, that's just hearsay. So with having those documents in hand backs up my story 100%. I mean, it's right there. It's the government's own document. Some of them were very hard to get. I had to go through a lot of channels and basically beg, please, can you give me a copy of this, please? I mean, right up to the point where I was denied a trial. I mean, go figure. Why would you deny a U.S. citizen a trial in the United States? She didn't want him to talk. The other thing was, I never mentioned before, was one of the police officer's wife was a Mexican citizen, and she wanted to go to trial. And my attorney, public pretender, he asked me, would you appear? And I'm like, of course. She didn't buy no firearms, and she wanted that to come out in court. I said, sure. As soon as they found out that I was going to testify on her behalf, I couldn't hurt her or help her. I only knew the facts. They let her walk. They did not want me up there talking at all. That's why I was in solitary for 450 days.
Wow.
What was your trip to Washington like, though? Just on a personal level, and the how many people in the room, if you can talk about that, and was there a stenographer? Were they recording it, or how? What was the environment like?
There was 3 people, and I was kind of scared going over there. Not scared of the Mexicans. I'm scared of my own government here. Trying to stop me, because last time I tried to speak to one of the government officials from Mexico, they actually tried to stop me here. I mean, what are they frightened of?
Right. Now I'm assuming you've got legal counsel and some other, just you're on solid ground as far as they always talk about the Logan Act, but they've never used it, so that's always there too. But it sounds like everything was pretty solid as far as your own personal safety, legally.
I mean, it's sad. I hear these ads on TV. Our rights are guaranteed by this. I mean, you have no idea how many violations. I didn't get the Speedy Trial Act. No one said anything about that. I was denied an attorney of my choice. I was denied a trial. I mean, they put tracking devices on my vehicle without a warrant. That was totally illegal, but it all doesn't matter, apparently. I mean, they got away with all this. How? I mean, how does this happen here in the United States? I mean, you would have thought I was in some Russian gulag, cleaning the walls of my little cell, freezing, using a little blanket to try and keep warm, sitting in feces every day up to my ankles. I mean, it's a joke. It got to the point where I would have was Charles Manson in the end, if they asked me.
What years would be the peak of depravity as far as that activity? It sounded like it did span over a number of years from the last interview we did.
Yes, it was 2011, about 2012, and then December 13th, 2013, I was immediately released. They got caught in their lie, and the disgusting thing is, you have 28 days credit for next time. I'm like, oh great, can I cash that out, or can I roll that over? It's really pathetic. It really is. I mean, it's comical, isn't it? It really is.
They really told you next time you commit a crime, you've already served 28 days. Or seriously?
Oh, yeah, seriously. I swear to God. I mean, the whole justice system here is a joke. The thing is, I kept telling them, and they wouldn't believe me. And then a real attorney heard what happened, and he jumped in and did it pro bono. I was immediately released, and they tried to stop me. They threatened me. They threatened to lose me in the system up there in Yankton, South Dakota. All kinds of threats, and I just kept going forward. I didn't, stop. I knew I was right, and by God, I was right. So what if I'm right about this now? About what the corruption and the connection? That's why.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, for taking that stand, because that's what it takes. Unfortunately, when corruption gets this bad, it takes people who know they're in the right to stand their ground and not to roll over for them, no matter what the cost. And I know you paid a heavy cost, but I'm sure you got to the point where you go, hey, somebody's got to do this, and you sort of had already suffered the consequences, so you're willing to do it. Thank you.
Yes, and I wrote to the judge, and I told him, I'm taking this plea, and it's a lie. I did not, conspire with these people, and I'm forced to take a plea. It's a lie, and that's on record. So, take it for whatever it's worth. They don't care. I mean, he sits there and lectures me. You should have known, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hang on, I should have known? They did know for a year. They knew from day one, and you've got the audacity to point your finger at me, you stupid old fool. Oh, I tell you what, I don't know how you get to be a judge these days. You know what? They just don't care.
Yeah, it's a political payoff of usually. Yeah, in situations like this, yeah, they know they're hired to serve certain political purposes, and that's what they see as their job, unfortunately. So it's time for a reckoning of all of that. The justice system needs a serious reworking.
Yeah, I mean, the public pretender's getting paid by the government, the judge is getting paid by the government, the prosecutor's getting paid by the government, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, mine made that horrendous mistake. I don't know how a 20-year trial lawyer makes those mistakes, but 7 others made the same mistake. How do 7 attorneys all make the same mistake? What the heck happened there, huh? That's amazing. One? What are you being paid for? You're a 20-year lawyer. How can you make mistakes? Isn't there something you go by and look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, take the steps to go through a case? He made these mistakes, so it got me immediate release. And so did 7 others. So what happened? What happened there?
Ian, what was the receptivity level on the American side, though, whoever was, monitoring or attending the meeting? Because just in light of some of the things that have come up with General Flynn's case, and we're seeing a lot of similarities in the way these judges are acting more like prosecutors and using the lawfare model. But what was your impression of the on the U.S. side?
Oh, what a big joke that was! I mean, the FBI lied, outright lied. Am I correct or not?
Right, but I mean now, like when you went in, when your interaction, your last trip, did you see it? You see a sea change there, or what was your impression of where things go from here?
It was only Mexican, and I believe I was on Mexican soil. That's
oh, okay, the diplomatic compound.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Only Mexican. They want nothing to do with the U.S. I wonder why.
Okay, but did you have clearance, or I'm assuming that it was still.
It was kind of funny because I walked in there and there was a guard there, and I mentioned one name, and they went and got me and walked me through. They bypassed security, everything I had, walked me in the back, and one of the guards did ask me, like, who are you? I've got nothing to say, man. I can't tell you anything. And, a white guy in a Mexican consulate kind of stands out, especially when you're 6'4",
Huh, okay.
I'm sure there were some questions being asked, but I just kept my mouth shut until I actually spoke to the man himself. They're very versed in our ways over here. I mean, like I said, I'm sure they've been educated and lived here for many, many years. Some of the stuff he was telling me, I'm like, wow, I was really impressed about everything he spoke about. All the old firearms and the calibers of this and that. This is not general knowledge. You're very smart, considering you don't have guns in Mexico.
Well, it's a great country. We tend to think in terms of parallel Canada, Mexico, but Mexico is a lot bigger. And I think the relationship has always been more symbiotic. And we've had I think in American history certainly the territorial disputes and the Mexican-American War back in the 1850s, I think it was, and the history's been strained, I would say, but hopefully it's getting better. But my concern is has the U.S. Justice Department changed their attitude about what you went through? Is there any indication of
Oh,
a change there from any, not this meeting maybe, but any other indication that would be cause for optimism about this case going forward?
I don't think anything's changed at all because I've written to the president several times and I've actually put a note there saying sending this to the pardon attorney is a waste of time. They're the ones who did this, and they sent it to the pardon attorney one day, and I got some reply. It was just gobbledygook, like, I mean, you send someone to jail, then you're caught in a lie, and you don't have the audacity to give the guy his rights back. I mean, what's that tell you? There's the answer to your question right there. I mean, they got caught red-handed. Anyone else was like, oh yeah, here's your rights back. But no, not DOJ, good old Department of Jokes.
Well, I see this as, I see Fast and Furious, What Happened to You, and some of the others as really the centerpiece of Obamagate. I know there are other aspects of Obamagate that do have significance, but for me, maybe just because I followed what was happening with you, Fast and Furious characterizes the corruption of the DOJ at that time. And the president has tweeted about Obamagate, and I feel certain that he carries a concern for Fast and Furious, and probably wants justice for that almost as much as we do. But it's one, for him, it's one book that he's carrying in a stack of books. But I feel confident that, especially considering the Obamagate tweets and how that was kind of a Twitter phenomenon a few weeks ago, I feel certain that the president will address what happened to you at some point, and hopefully in the not too distant future.
You would think with my case, how they made the mistakes, I would have some sort of recourse. The prosecutor lied, got caught. The public pretender screwed up big time, and they're all immune. I mean, you can't go after them. It's just amazing. I've tried to get an attorney. They won't do it. It's just a waste of time. When I got there in court, I don't know, I can't remember if it was the arraignment or not. This is how corrupt that judge was again. He asked the prosecutor, oh, can you prove these charges? And the prosecutor gets up and says, oh, yes, sure, we can, Judge. What was he going to say? Well, gee, Judge, I'm not too sure, Let me think about it. How corrupt are they? Stupid old fool.
Yeah.
Ruin my life. And the actual ATF sitting there, they're the ones who did it. Stupid fool.
Well, some of these cases can really get amped up just by, by people researching. I think that definitely helped General Flynn's case stay alive, in the right place, because people were continually, generating content about, the Russia hoax and keeping that alive. And there's a political downside when the politicians will lean on the legal system when it becomes in their interest politically to do so. And I think that has happened. And when a case vanishes from view, the politicians go with it because they, there's no vote attached to it. But the negative, especially with the Democrats, I think this might be a really sensitive case. I hope it comes back.
Yeah, and you already had an interview with Ann Vandersteel, and she's on Parler, so you have a connection right there already.
Yes, correct. I mean, it's slowly gathering speed and steam. I just don't want it to run out. I mean, it needs to go.
Right.
President Trump needs to do something. Not giving us our rights back. I mean, you already proved your FBI was a liar on many cases so far. And look what happened to Martha Stewart. She lied. She gets in jail for 6 months. And I must say, thank God they got her, because I was having nightmares about her being on the street. That was a real hey, God.
I was kind of a fan. I don't know.
The FBI lies, and what happens? Nothing. nothing. I mean, look what happened in Arizona when they broke Fast and Furious. Ken Nelson got promoted somewhere else. No one's held accountable. It's business as usual. Ruby Ridge, just kill half the guy's family. Business as usual. Waco, oops, we screwed up again. All right, well, no problem. Business as usual.
You know what is kind of interesting is you know, a few of those things that you just mentioned, like Waco. Well, there's a recent Netflix series about that. Narcos Mexico, recent big Netflix series about that. So I think those are contributing to the public education where people actually understand there really is serious corruption and abuse of power in government, in federal government, and between nations, drug running, all of this stuff. People know it's real now.
And it's true because back then the FBI was actually not the FBI, sorry, the ATF was actually facing cutbacks at my time. And they actually mentioned that on that series, Waco. They had to go looking for stuff to do because they were facing cutbacks. I mean, it's a rogue agency that doesn't need to exist anymore. I mean, we've got the FBI. You know, when I had my federal firearms license, I want to do a background check. Well, the FBI center, it's done in 5 minutes. Let the feds hold it, you know, the FBI handle it, local police. Need to have this ATF anymore. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. But what do they do with alcohol? We've got the beverage control. It's just a waste of an entity of money.
Yeah, people don't realize the extent to which government creates problems so that they can stay in the business of solving the problems. It's a no-brainer, but people don't think about that because people are naive. I'm sorry, but Americans have to get over it and start getting wise about this stuff.
You know, I saw a story come up, and let's see, it looks like it's a recent story about a sentencing, and I was wondering if you're aware of any other, you know, active cases or anything that have come up or that might have an impact on, you know, recognizing a name or something that, you know, something to refresh the story that way. Ian, are there any developments? Are there any active cases still going that you're aware of in the complex Fast and Furious?
I watch the news, and every now and again I do search the web for information. The last information I heard was the Reese family out of Deming, New Mexico. They tried to they went after them, and he was able to. They actually froze. First, they freeze all your assets so you can't get an attorney. But the town came together and got enough money for him to get a real attorney, and they pretty much got out of everything except, I don't know, they didn't cross a T or dot an I, something like that. I mean, they ruined that guy's life, and that was the last I ever heard of anything to do with Fast and Furious. And they won't talk about it. I believe they got almost all their stuff back with a gag order, signing a gag order, a non-disclosure. That was the last I've ever heard, and that was about 2016, 2017, I think, if I recall.
Yeah, I can't tell if this article is recent or what, but it does look like they've shut down most of the active cases, and we're dealing with basically a historical retrospective. But a lot of it, yeah, is you're finding out is based on this investigation they're doing of I think it's the Mexican Attorney General. What did he know and when? And he, of course, was trying to pass the buck, you know, kick it upstairs that the president at that time knew about it.
Exactly.
And they're in this sort of pointing, you know, finger pointing contest. I don't know if that has much bearing on what happened to you, though, because I think the primary interest as U.S. citizens is to what extent was the Obama administration complicit in this thing, and what was the other side of the transaction? You know, did you ever speculated on that? What else what was Obama getting out of this deal? You know,
to start off, why did Obama and Holder invoke executive privilege and seal those documents? So what's there? There's your answer right there. What's going on there? Why would you do that? Yeah, and he called Kent Terry, brother of Brian Terry, a thorn in his side. And you know, Kent was trying to make waves and find out what's going on, what happened to my brother, you know. There's a reason why they invoked executive privilege. I'd like to see those documents. someone knew about it. Just to say that no one knew and just happened by itself is just a bunch of lies.
Have you ever done a FOIA request on anything?
Oh yeah, let me tell you about that. How that went. This is hilarious. You're gonna love this one. I went Freedom of Information Act. I wrote to DEA and that. I received a form back, and you got to fill out the form, and then I mailed it back, and then the letter came back undeliverable, no such address. So how did the first one get there? You know, so that just went nowhere. That was hilarious. The first one gets there, they send me the paperwork back, I fill it out, send it back in, and then the letter comes back undeliverable, no such address. So the same address.
Well, there is. Who's our we're probably Cindy and Don are familiar with him too. Is it who is it? Freedom Watch? Is that the one? But he's doing a lot of FOIA work, and he's based in D.C. And if he got interested,
you're talking about Tom Fitton.
Yeah, I think Fitton is getting a lot more cred down in D.C. and he's his approach is a little different, and I don't know. It seems like if you're familiar with him, or if you become familiar with him, he might, if he or one of his staff took an interest in it, because his FOIAs don't get lost in the mail. He's got he's got a little more exposure, and that was the point from before, is that when there's a political downside, when a content creator and alternative media achieves that level of notoriety, they begin to, eyebrows get raised when they take a case on, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, I'm thinking you could, Ian, actually even potentially contact the Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton on Parler messaging, and then Ann Vandersteel's there. You can message her too. So it's not that you could also email them, of course, but I don't know. It's a little bit a tighter community that way. So anyway, it's just a possibility.
Well, we met with Chris Farley from Judicial Group. We gave him the documents, and they vetted the documents. Wesley's documents, my documents, and that's all we heard from them too.
I think it's just a challenging time. I with all my heart, I believe that as the swamp is drained, these prickly little things are going to be, they'll be visible to everybody. Some of these things that the Obama administration did, everybody's going to find out about them, and there will be justice served. I just think, I think it's almost like there's a set of dominoes that are set up, and I think there might be a kind of a certain order in which they need to fall so that they all fall. And I don't know, there's been, and we talk, Ian, sometimes with the, between Don and Ken and I, we talk about Bill Barr and is he really doing anything? And I heard his speech from the Ford Library last week about China and China interfering in Hollywood, and it was almost like listening to Alex Jones talk. I mean, he hit what probably a lot of people consider conspiracy theories head on, and called people out, and so everybody's been wanting Bill Barr to release indictments on people, but he's indicting the nation of China. So I think there's this
and big tech at the same time for cooperating with them.
Yeah. So all that to say, I think there's again, I think the idea of the dominoes need to fall in a certain order, and at the right time, I believe with all my heart that you are going to be completely vindicated. And you've already done that to a certain extent for yourself by just once again surviving this ordeal and coming out on the other side with your integrity, and working now with the armed services to train paratroopers. And you are, as far as I'm concerned, you are vindicated. But I know that it means a lot to you to have that felony removed from your record, because who wants to walk around with that weight? And I believe that will happen too. I really do.
Well, I think the archetypical big important name that's gone before Ian and the rest of us is, not us, but the rest of the military, is General Flynn. He has had an incredible ordeal, lost his home, and his family was threatened, and they still can't claim victory because the enemy legal scholars, or if you want to call them that, their henchmen are still not giving up. So when the stakes are this high, they know that they have no choice but to keep on doing everything they can. So I think Fast and Furious will, the vindication will happen for all involved, as it's been happening for General Flynn. It is one thing after another as the legal process gets cleaned up. And that takes all of us praying, supporting, and participating in government, taking our government back in many different ways.
Yeah, so, and just in conclusion here, I think of it, the stigma that's associated with this, it was almost as if you were a prisoner of war. Both of you really, our other interview outlined that as well, that I don't regard those convictions as being legitimate, and any stigma they try to associate with that is just illegitimate. It was I think we'll realize in historical review that the Obama administration was a criminal enterprise, really, and it may take a long time to unroll that. But thank you for your service and in your battle against the deep state that we're all engaged in.
I didn't give up then, and I won't give up now.
Absolutely, I think that Obama and that crew were assuming that you had the degree, and the others that you all had the degree of integrity and perseverance that maybe they have, and I think they severely underestimated all of you. And so yeah, I echo what Ken said, and thank you for persevering, and anytime that we can be of any kind of assistance, we are more than willing.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode of PoliSci Podcast. If you have, we ask that you please click like, share this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on BitChute, follow us on Twitter, and if you have a moment, visit our website. Once again, thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care.